It was supposed to be another smooth night for late-night television. The lights blazed, the cameras rolled, and Jimmy Kimmel, the man known for sharp jokes and sharper jabs, was ready to deliver another round of laughs. But what no one in that studio expected was how quickly those laughs would turn into dead silence. Mark Wahlberg walked onto that stage like a storm held back by calm. He was there to promote his new action film, talk about his craft, his family, and maybe share a few laughs. The audience cheered, the music played, everything seemed perfectly scripted, until Jimmy opened his mouth. "So Mark, welcome back to the show," he said with that signature smirk. Then came the sting. "Tell me, how does it feel being Hollywood's most overpaid tough guy?" For a second, the air froze. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or hold their breath. Mark's smile faltered, his jaw tightened. The man who'd fought his way from the streets of Boston to the heights of Hollywood wasn't about to let that slide easily. "Jimmy," Mark said evenly, "I'm here to talk about the movie." The crew worked hard on this one, but Kimmel wasn't done. He leaned back, feigning casual arrogance. "Oh, come on, Mark. Everyone knows you just show up, flex, say a few lines, and walk away with $20 million. Must be nice having that easy life." That was it. The energy in the room shifted. Wahlberg leaned forward, eyes locked on Jimmy. "Easy life? You think getting up at 4 every morning, training for months, doing your own stunts is easy? Try it sometime." The crowd went still, no laughter, no movement. Just tension thick enough to cut with a knife. In those few seconds, the show stopped being entertainment. It became something else, raw, real, dangerously unscripted. Kimmel tried to laugh it off, flashing that fake grin the cameras loved. "Whoa, easy there, Marky Mark," he said, the audience letting out a few nervous chuckles. But beneath that grin, his eyes darted, realizing the crowd wasn't laughing with him anymore. Mark didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, calm, but razor-focused. "You invited me here, Jimmy. If you wanted to joke, fine. But maybe next time, joke about yourself first." The words hit like a quiet punch. You could feel the room split, half expecting Kimmel to bounce back with another joke. The other half, watching, waiting, sensing something real was about to unfold. Jimmy, clearly uncomfortable, forced another laugh. "Hey, it's all love, man. You know how this works? A little teasing, a little fun?" Ow. Mark nodded slowly. "Teasing's fine. Disrespect isn't." That single sentence shifted everything. The audience clapped, not loudly, not wildly, but enough to make Kimmel blink. He wasn't used to losing control of his own stage. "Come on, Mark," Jimmy said, voice tightening. "You've got to admit you're kind of an easy target. The tough guy routine, the action hero image, it's all part of the act, right?" Mark's expression didn't change. "You think it's an act? Try working your way up from nothing. Try surviving when everyone counted you out. That's not a routine, Jimmy. That's real life." The crowd fell completely silent. Even the production crew froze, waiting for a cue that never came. And in that silence, it became clear this wasn't just a late-night interview anymore. This was a confrontation between fame and humility, ego and respect. And it was only getting started. The tension in the room felt alive, pulsing through every camera lens. Every nervous laugh, every glance exchanged between the audience members who suddenly weren't sure if they were supposed to be entertained or witnessing something they shouldn't. Jimmy tried to pivot. "Hey, don't get me wrong, Mark, you're one of the greats. Just lighten up a little. It's comedy." Mark's eyes didn't move. "Comedy's fine, Jimmy, but what you're doing isn't comedy. It's hiding behind a joke to take shots at people who can't fire back. You just picked the wrong one tonight." That line cracked through the studio like thunder. A few gasps, a few muffled claps. Kimmel's grin faltered for the first time visibly. The cameras caught it all. Mark leaned in, voice low, but firm. "You think because you're behind a desk you get to decide who's the joke and who's the punchline? I've worked with crews who've broken their backs for a dream you get to laugh at for 10 minutes. The audience erupted, this time in applause. Real applause. Not the forced kind, cued by a red light, but the kind born from truth. Jimmy blinked fast, eyes flicking toward the producers. He could see the panic in the control room, someone whispering in his earpiece. We'll take a quick no, Mark interrupted, still composed. You wanted real TV? You've got it. There it was, the full reversal. The host wasn't hosting anymore. The guest was in charge, commanding the moment, controlling the room, and for the first time in his career, Jimmy Kimmel wasn't the one making people laugh. He was the one being watched, judged, and slowly, quietly outclassed. The audience sat frozen, eyes glued to the stage, breaths held like they knew something historic was unfolding. Jimmy adjusted his tie, trying to pull the moment back under control. Mark, come on, it's a talk show. People tune in to laugh. Nobody wants a lecture. Mark smiled faintly. You think standing up for respect is a lecture? You've built a career on making people laugh at others. Maybe it's time you learn to laugh with them. The audience murmured low, approving, uneasy. Jimmy's smile cracked again. He looked around, expecting support, but all he saw were cameras and silence. The control room wasn't cutting to commercial. This was live, too real to hide. Mark leaned forward. I grew up watching guys like you. Perfect suit, perfect smile, acting like you're better than the rest of us. But the thing is, Jimmy, people are tired of fake laughter. They want honesty. His voice softened, calm but powerful. Every night, you mock someone. Maybe it's a celebrity. Maybe it's a politician. You call it humor. But what you're really doing is reminding everyone that you think you're above them. The crowd began to clap again, slowly, steadily. Even the band in the corner looked unsure whether to play or just watch. Kimmel tried to laugh it off. Hey, I'm just doing my job. Mark didn't blink. Then do it better. That line landed like a hammer. For a moment, it didn't feel like TV. It felt like truth cutting through noise. The tension had shifted completely now. Jimmy wasn't the host anymore. He was the lesson. And Mark, he'd just become the voice saying what millions had always wanted to say out loud. Asterisk. Jimmy's face was tightening now, the easy grin gone, replaced by the look of a man cornered on his own stage. He shifted in his chair, searching for an escape. But instead of backing off, he went too far. So, Mark, he said, forcing a smirk, is this the part where you lose your temper like you used to? You know, back in those days before Hollywood cleaned you up? The room went cold. The air changed. Even the band fell silent. The audience didn't laugh. They just stared. Mark's eyes darkened, but his voice stayed calm. You really want to go there, Jimmy? Kimmel tried to hold the upper hand. Hey, it's public record, right? Nothing wrong with a little honesty? Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees, tone sharp as glass. You want honesty? I made mistakes. I paid for them. I worked every day to become better as a man, a father, a person. That's growth. You wouldn't know about that, would you? That line hit him hard. Jimmy's face lost color. The audience started clapping again, louder this time, not for drama, but for courage. Mark continued, voice steady but burning. You think dragging up someone's past makes you look brave? It doesn't. It makes you look weak. Real strength is facing your own reflection, not mocking someone else's. Kimmel sat frozen, the crowd roaring behind Mark like a rising wave. Mark didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just looked at him silently, powerfully. You're hiding behind a desk, Jimmy. I stopped hiding years ago. And in that moment, the audience saw it too. The host who'd built his empire on laughter, now stripped down by truth. The crowd wasn't cheering for entertainment anymore. They were cheering for respect. Asterisk, the studio was no longer a stage. It felt like a courtroom. And the audience had already chosen a side. Jimmy sat slouched behind his desk, his cue cards trembling slightly in his hand. The same man who once owned the spotlight now looked like he wanted to disappear beneath it. He forced a weak laugh. All right, Mark. Maybe I pushed too hard. Mark didn't answer right away. He just looked at him, calm, collected, but with that quiet intensity that made everyone lean forward. You didn't just push too hard, Jimmy. You forgot there's a line. You crossed it the moment you decided disrespect was entertainment, Kimmel sighed, rubbing his forehead. Look, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean to make it personal. Mark nodded slowly. You're not sorry for what you said. You're sorry people saw it? That truth hit harder than any insult could. The audience gasped, and then silence. The kind of silence that made even the cameras hesitate to move. Mark continued, his tone softer now, but no less powerful. We all make mistakes. The difference is, some of us own up to them, and some hide behind jokes and applause. Kimmel tried to smile again, but it came out cracked, hollow. He looked toward the crowd, searching for approval that wasn't there anymore. Mark stood up. You know what the real problem is, Jimmy? Somewhere along the way, you stopped listening. You started performing even when real people were sitting right in front of you. The audience clapped again, steady, respectful, not wild. It wasn't a cheer for drama. It was for truth. And in that moment, Kimmel knew the show was no longer his. It belonged to the man who refused to play along. Mark stood there for a moment, the studio lights reflecting off his calm expression. The entire room was still, no laughter, no cue cards, no fake applause, just raw silence. You could hear the hum of the cameras, the weight of every unspoken word filling the space. Jimmy tried to regain control one last time. Hey, don't walk out, Mark. Let's just wrap this up, all right? His voice wavered, caught somewhere between guilt and desperation. Mark looked at him, almost kindly. There's nothing left to wrap up, Jimmy. You wanted a moment? Well, this is it. Just not the one you expected. He reached up, unclipped his microphone, and set it gently on the desk. The sound of that small click echoed louder than any punchline that night. The audience didn't move. Some even stood, unsure if they were watching an act or a reckoning. Mark straightened his jacket. You see, respect doesn't come from a camera or a crowd or a paycheck. It comes from how you treat people when the lights are off. He turned toward the audience, his voice steady, measured. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small just because they have the mic. Everyone deserves a voice. Everyone. The crowd rose to their feet, applause thundering through the studio. Not for celebrity, not for scandal, but for something real. Jimmy sat frozen, eyes on the desk, unable to look up. Mark gave one final nod, not of victory, but of closure. Then he walked off the stage, leaving the lights blazing behind him, in a silence that said more than any joke ever could. That night, Hollywood didn't witness a meltdown. It witnessed a man reclaim his dignity live and unedited. Moments like this remind us that fame doesn't define character, integrity does. Mark Wahlberg didn't just defend himself. He reminded everyone watching what respect truly looks like. If this moment hit you as hard as it did the crowd that night, take a second to drop a like, share this story, and subscribe for more powerful moments where truth outweighs titles. Every week, we uncover real stories behind the headlines, unfiltered, honest, and unforgettable. Because sometimes the most dramatic scenes aren't scripted, they're lived.